Ambrose Bierce was an American short story writer, journalist, and poet, as well as a Civil War veteran. He was born in 1942 and died sometime around 1914. His book, The Devil's Dictionary, was named as one of the greatest masterpieces of American literature. His story, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, has been described as one of the most famous and frequently anthologized stories in American literature. That's not the story that first led me to Ambrose Bierce. It was one called The Damned Thing. This story is about a hunting trip that goes awry due to mysterious forces that neither the hunters ever catch a glimpse of. This type of experience is extremely common while hunting in the desert, as the scrub brushes are so low to the ground that you might not ever see a herd of wild pigs that may be merely feet from you. This experience is so familiar to me that when I first got this audio recording set up, I wanted to do a reading of The Damned Thing, but I got a little too caught up in Ambrose Bierce's Wikipedia article to actually even start recording that story. So tonight, while I will not be reading the whole of his Wikipedia article, I just wanted to share with you the ending of the story. In between his work as a short story writer, he was a journalist covering the Civil War. After the Civil War, was assigned to cover the Mexican Revolution. Now, this was not the Mexican-American War, but this was just the Mexican Revolution itself, where the Mexican natives kicked out the Spanish. So I'll read you this paragraph from the Wikipedia article. In October 1913, Bierce, then aged 71, departed from Washington, D.C. for a tour of his old Civil War battlefields. According to some reports, by December he had passed through Louisiana and Texas, crossing by the way of El Paso into Mexico, which was in the throes of revolution. Bierce made it to Juarez, which is not terribly far from El Paso. You can actually see it from the highway if you're going through El Paso. He found and joined Pancho Villa's army as an observer. Pancho Villa was famous for his raids on the American side of the border and is kind of glorified in modern Mexican pride. In the role of observer, Bierce witnessed the Battle of Tierra Blanca, which is something I don't know much about. It was reported that Bierce accompanied Villa's army as far as the city of Chihuahua. His last known communications with the world was a letter he wrote there to Blanche Partington, a close friend, dated December 26, 1913. After closing this letter by saying, "As to me, I leave here tomorrow for an unknown destination," he vanished without a trace, his disappearance becoming one of America's most famous in literary history. Skeptic Joe Nickel noted that the letter had not been found. All that existed was a notebook belonging to his secretary and companion, Carrie Christensen. And Nicholson concluded that Bierce deliberately concealed his true whereabouts when he finally went to a selected location in the Grand Canyon and committed suicide. There was an official investigation by U.S. consular officials of the disappearance of one of its citizens. Some of Villa's men were questioned at the time of his disappearance and afterwards with contradictory accounts. Pancho Villa's representative in the United States, Felix A. Sommerfield, was contacted by U.S. Chief of Staff Hugh L. Scott, and Sommerfield investigated the disappearance. Bierce was said to have last been seen in the city of Chihuahua in January, a month after the letter was sent. In Sierra Majada, which is a city found in Coahuila, which is a Mexican state that is east of Chihuahua, the state of Chihuahua, and the city of Chihuahua. In that region, they have an oral tradition which was documented by a priest named James Leinert. This oral tradition states that Bierce was executed by firing squad in the town cemetery. Despite an abundance of theories, Bierce's ultimate fate still remains a mystery to this day, and we have no clue where his body is or when he died. And I hope to get into more of his fate and Wikipedia article and some of his short stories, and hopefully I'll be putting some of the recordings online shortly. Have a good night.